Appreciate everybody making the call again today. We're excited to bring to you a topic today that I believe is critical for leaderships and for leaders, regardless of your industry and of your business. And the one that we're excited to bring to you about today that sometimes is misunderstood, but I like to think of this as a superpower in business leadership, and that's strategic focus. We're super excited to get into this one, but we're gonna give it some time. I just want to make sure everybody's is settled. I see a lot of cameras bumping all over the place, so I don't know if everybody's there. I've lost a couple views on the guys there, but I think everybody's good now. Okay, there we go. I see Tyler. I see James. All right, here we go. Let's get started. So again, we're talking about the superpower that I think is misunderstood. That's that strategic focus. And what I'm talking about is not hustle, not chaos, not being too busy, okay? This is about learning to say less and achieve more by picking fewer yet bigger and more aligned targets. And then executing those relentlessly. Because most leaders don't fail from lack of ideas. Okay, if you've ever worked with a visionary, and I've worked with a few, and we have one in the room here with Willy, right? Visionaries don't lack ideas. They throw tons of ideas all day long, but where they fail from is that there are too many priorities and not enough focus. So today we're going to get into the framework of how to structure some particular focus around the vision to get you winning. Okay? So, like I said, this is important because if you're really looking to win in business, you must have focus. And most leaders think that growth comes through addition. They believe that adding more will get you to win. More services, being everything for everyone. Who's done that before? I mean, I know I've seen it. I hear it all the time, right? They think more initiatives, more products, more meetings, more goals, more and more and more. But the reality is that high level leaders and CEOs that are successful become more strategic through subtraction, not addition. And let me give you an example of what I mean. There's two that I'm going to touch into right off the bat to make it real for everybody. The first one was with a landscape company that I had an opportunity to work with about a year ago. And it was interesting to me that they were very specifically focused on just multifamily unit services. And when I went to them and they talked about revenue growth and they talked about growing and expanding, they never mentioned we're going to do commercial. They never mentioned we're going to do individual home services. And I said to them many times, like, guys, you want to grow your revenue, you want to expand, but you don't want to look at this. Why? And the owner was so clear in his vision. He said, Hector, because we've built our company just to do this one service and we're the best at it. We know exactly how to price this, we know exactly how to service it, and we know how to maintain it. And I was like, okay, I get it, but let me experience it. So I went into their business and I had a look, and he was so right. He had built teams that carried the equipment, the trucks, everything was so niched to be able to take care of multifamily units. They knew how many man hours it was going to take because that's all they did. They knew the type of equipment and trucks that they needed to buy because they weren't trying to do commercial. So they didn't need to go buy these massive skid steers and work their shifts 24 hours a day all in the middle of the night because they weren't doing commercial. They knew that they would work their people from 6 a.m. in the morning until 6 p.m. in the afternoon in the winter, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the summers. So they attracted the right people. They just had it built so well. And guess what their EBITDA number was at? Over 30% year over year. So when they went to sell, they sold by 3 times the average market rate for what it was going on a multiplier perspective. So young entrepreneur couple, they were so niched, they did it the right way. But again, they were laser focused on providing a service catered to a specific client base. So a second example that I wanted to share with you, and what does this mean and how do you add more through less? At Willy's Trucking, as we were growing and as we were getting aligned, we were very specifically focused on time delivery. And so everything that we did became planned out to how do we deliver on time service. So from the types of works that we did, from flat deck to LTL to um, the times to the ways that we arranged the loads on the vans were all strategically designed to allow us to meet our time critical deliveries. To give you an idea, we would make sure that when we went out to town and doing all the P&D pickups, so the local delivery, the local pickups, bring them back to the cross hub, the cross dock hub, we would bring them back in there and we would stage them. So we needed to have the floor space, and sometimes this meant trailers, but we would place them into trailers to hold that freight there to be ready to backload it. So when it delivered the next morning at its destination point, the time critical freight was the first one that came out. That was the way we started. Then as we grew our time critical commitments, we had time critical trailers. And they were all like the 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. ones were loaded into one specific trailer. And their departure times were, they would cut off at like 9 p.m. They needed to leave Edmonton at 9 so that they were in Grand Prairie in time by 3 so that we could have them being delivered in GP and surrounding areas by 5 a.m. in the morning. Like we built out a network that was so niche focused. And so everything that we did from the way that we built our city operation was to allow us to have success at that other end. So those are some of the, the ideas and the real life examples that I wanted to share with the group. But let me give you something else, because you might think, okay, well, those sound cool, but who else has done it? I want some big names. Well, we don't have to look any further than Jeff Bezos, right? He's built Amazon on one ruthless focus, and that's customer obsession. That's what it is. It's all about the long-term thinking, and everything else was noise. He doesn't care about everything. He wants to know all about the customer experience. So it's niched that way to enable you and I to have a great purchasing experience when we go to the Amazon app. So, another one that I heard through my research is Warren Buffett. And he said the difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to a lot of things. And Elon Musk, love him or hate him, but he runs multiple companies by focusing on clear, long horizon missions. So he wants to electrify transportation. He wants to make space travel a reality. And he wants to accelerate AI. That's what those companies are focused on. They're not trying to do anything else. He's building it all out to be that way because everything ladders, it scales to those missions. So, as your lesson, as we say, as a leader, is not to do more. It's to decide what you need to do more effectively. And that's the critical message here today, is to pick what's the thing that really will make you effective and successful. And so as a tool that we like to talk about here at OBS is creating a North Star or a goal, right? Like what's your 12-month North Star and what's your yearly goal that you're going to challenge you and your teams to go and relentlessly put in place. And so how do we do this? So ask yourself this simple question, and I'd like you all to, to think about this in your heads. If your business only accomplished one thing this year, what would change? Would it change everything for you? If you just accomplished one thing, would it change everything? Would it make you better? Would it make you more efficient? Would it bring you more profit? Would it bring you more or improved culture in your workplace, what would that one thing be if you could just relentlessly focus on that? That's your North Star. That is your ultimate filter for every decision. And examples of this, again, would be if I do this, can it increase my EBITDA margin by 10%? Right? Or if you don't understand what the EBITDA piece is can it increase my profit by 30%? Because you want your profit to be, to be as large as it can be. Can it build a relationship layers to remove the owner from everyday tasks? Can it build a structure to allow the owner to operate without your everyday involvement? Can it launch reoccurring revenue for predictable cash flow? If you did the one thing, can it do that? Can it reduce turnover and build a talent pipeline? Meaning, can it create the right culture in your workplace? Can you sell it to others to join the organization and bring top talent? And then break it down into quarterly strategic priorities. One per quarter, folks, is really all that you need. And I know you'll talk to people and they'll say, go do 5. We always tell people 1 to 3. Less is more. And in this case, there's a reason why we say less is more. Because if you are scattered, it creates scattered results. So if you're not aligned, if you're not focused, that's what's going to lead to that. So don't go selecting 5, 8 rocks. Just pick 1 to 3. That's a healthy number that you can be clearly aligned to delivering to every quarter. And then you ask yourself that again the next quarter, the next 90-day cycles. And when you do that, you get into the habit of checking your organization for staying focused on the vision that you would like to see achieved for your company. Right? And so we talk about vision and how does this flow? So vision leads to priorities. Priorities then lead to actions. And when you have actions, you will gradually lead into scorecards so that you can have accountability in your organization. This is the focus system, right? And I know at OBS we have a cool system that I know Willy has talked to you about. He's mentioned EOS. We like to call this the framework of the compass. But to be honest, to be transparent with you, what this really is a focused operating system. It layers in the descriptions of the key components that you, as business leaders, owners, and department heads, need to be aligned on. And that is your vision. So where are you going? You need to know the path of where you're going. Strategic priorities. Work on what matters most. Don't be scattered. Actions. What are the weekly execution steps that you must take? Right? And then hold each other accountable to doing them. Don't go taking tasks and say to-dos and then you don't do them. I actually, I was meeting with a team earlier this week and I had to give them shit because their to-dos were like in the low 30 percentile. And I was like, you guys are talking to me every week about how you're not moving the needle. Well, because you're continuing to avoid doing the work. Go do the work. Go get it done, and then you'll see the results. But failing to focus on what matters is going to continue to give you really bad results, right? And then that takes me into scorecard. Pick the right 5 to 10 KPIs, key performance indicators, or numbers that tell you whether you're winning or losing. Pick those, put them together, review them daily. Don't review them once a month. Don't review them once a week. If you can review them daily, that is the key to success in the long term. And then when you have results that are off track, ensure that you have accountability. Who owns what? Who tracks the progress? And who's accountable for the results? Assign accountability within your teams and hold people accountable. people. Don't give somebody a KPI ownership and never ever hold them accountable. Don't ever do that, because that's never going to work for your organization, because you're going to come tell Willie or I, oh yeah, I have a scoreboard and I have owners. Oh yeah, and what are the scores? Are they in the green or red? Nah, they're in the red. And what do you do about it? Oh, we talk about it. Really? We talk about it, or do you do something about it? Do you actually go and ask, why is it in the red? What's preventing it? What's going to make that change? If you're not getting to that level of accountability, you're not going to move the needle. Okay. So I wanted to make sure we touched on the path to get there, because successful leaders don't keep just goals in their heads. They systemize the focus and they engage others to ensure that they get the results. An example of this, again, I like to always bring examples that are relatable. And we think about Netflix. They scaled by focusing on specific things: subscription model, content personalization, and original content. They weren't chasing trends, they were executing a long-term vision systematically. So, we'll get into some of these real life examples. I know Willie has a few things to share on his businesses, and we'll be looking to hear from you and how you are creating a vision and system for your companies, so that we can all learn some of the best practices. But I want to talk about mistakes first. Okay, so common leadership mistakes. These are some of the patterns that kill growth. All right, write these down. Number one, too many projects at once. Who's been in an organization where you're right? I'm in one. I know how it goes. You understand that you got things going, but man, all of a sudden you got this going and that going and this starting, and by the way, this is happening too. Too many projects at once. It will create chaos. It will create frustration, and it could kill growth. I know it's short lived, and if you're strategic about it, you can get out of it and be successful. But be wary, be aware that too many projects at once is not an ideal situation. If you do it going into it with it's a project, it's going to be 3 months of pain, but we will get out of this status. Good. That's okay. Just don't live in it all the time. Okay. The next one is changing priorities weekly. If you're a leader that you change the next shiny object, you will create chaos and you will kill growth in your organization and for your teams. You have to be consistent in what those priorities are. Okay. The next one is delegation without metrics. I had somebody tell me the other day, oh, I've delegated that already, but it just never gets done. And I'm like, well, did you tell them when they needed to do it? And he said, actually, no, I didn't tell them when they needed to complete it. Well, then how then that's not delegating with success. You just gave somebody a task, but as far as they're concerned, they have all year to complete it. So don't get upset at them for not doing it. Get upset at you for not giving them the playbook on how to win the game. And then the individual understood what was missing. So just be mindful again of that, right? And lack of strategic meetings. This one frustrates me. I like to go into a meeting that has an outcome that will deliver accountability, clear objectives on what we're working on, and clear issues to discuss, and then let's go fix it. I I have said this to Willie, and I've said this to many others that know me. I am not a salesperson, and I don't like making sales visits, because I always feel like when I go to these sales calls, I'm having conversations that don't yield problem solving. They're all about making the other person feel a certain way, and I'm thinking about, like, what's the issue to solve? If I don't have an issue to solve, I'm just feel like I'm wasting my time. And so I would like the team to be of the mindset of, how do we become strategic in our meetings, looking for the issue to solve, and particularly when you're bringing people off the field into an hour long session. You're paying for that time. So it has to be an investment. Think of it in that sense. If they're stopped producing, they're not making you money. So the return on that investment, it has to be, we're going to complete the task that we choose to do today. And the last, what I think is a pattern or last mistake, is trying to fix every problem at the same time. You can't plug holes all the time. I get it. I understand that you have all these priorities, but you have to be strategic on finding the right solution for the right problem. Not every action will solve it all. So be specific. There are some priorities that you must solve first, and some issues or some problems that may not be as urgent, that could wait a little bit. And that way, then you ensure you fix it the right way and you hit the root cause, not a symptom. Because what I find is most people start to hit on issues and they don't get deep enough. And that's why it continues to reoccur as an issue in your teams and in your organization. So I always like to think here that with these type of patterns, leadership is really about subtraction before addition. That means doing less but being more strategic in your approach. So, about the framework, we talked about the North Star. Okay, now pick your North Star. What outcome matters most to you this year? And I know the year's almost over, but just think, if it was already 2025 or 2026 and you're in that mode already, you should be, by the way, because it's November, so you should be thinking about 2026 now. This is the time of the year that you should be planning for 2026. Do not wait till January to start to plan for 2026. You'll be already behind the eight ball. So, what's one outcome that matters for you in 2026? Why does that matter for you? What breaks if you don't accomplish it? And what becomes possible if you do? So let's think about that. How does it play out? Let's say that, your outcome next year is that you must expand into a new product line if you're a service provider. Okay, a new service offering. Why does it matter? Well, it's going to give us more revenue. Okay, what happens if we don't accomplish it? Well, if we don't accomplish that, that means that we can't grow because we've tapped out in our current offerings. But what happens if you do it? Well, if we do, then we're able to enter into a new segment. We're understanding that we can grow. This will allow us to then scale maybe into other areas, maybe other cities, and allow our business to continue to grow. So this is why these type of questions are important for us to ask each other, so that we can get clear on why these initiatives are priorities. And then we set those quarterly priorities. So 1 to 3 bold objectives. We like to call those rocks, but they're clear objectives. And then what you need to do to move them. So what initiatives do you need to take to make those reality? And then create a weekly execution plan. We like to call those your L10 meetings, where you're reviewing your execution week after week, right? And then in that L10 meeting, you have your scorecard review. 5 to 10 KPIs that are tied to your priority, that are tied to your goal, right? That could be your sales activity, your conversion rates, your one-time delivery or your on-time delivery, your customer churn, your net profit per route, per job, per customer, however you need to see the information, and team accountability metrics. Because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And if you can't see it weekly, you can't fix it. Okay, I want to make sure that that's clearly important for the business owners here. If you can't see it weekly, you can't fix it. It's something that most owners forget, that you need the data. The data has to be real. It has to be timely for your people to action it. I think we've talked about this before, and I'm sure Willy will relate, but when we first started at Willy's Trucking, the data was so so old that it frustrated a lot of us, and in fact it was causing us to fail because we didn't know what to work on. So, you know, and I'll close off by saying, the Willie's example for me was so critical in my career because it allowed me to have that experience of a major turnaround. And working with Willie, was so cool because after when we became aligned, we recognized that we didn't need to chase 12, 15 priorities. We chose one, and Willie will talk about it shortly, but it was, we're an LTL carrier. Let's do LTL freight. Let's deliver it on time. That was the vision. That was the challenge. And by doing so, we stopped the financial bleeding and built what I like to think was super excellent operational discipline. We focused on time performance, damage free delivery. Our driver standards and leadership accountability was like top notch because we wanted people that were aligned with what our challenge was, what the mission was. And because of that, then it yielded cost control and margin restoration that gave the organization the financial output and success that it was, right? But it all stemmed from that singular focus. It wasn't every hands on every project chaotic mentality. It wasn't that. It was clear strategic mentality. And that turned the company from losing millions, right? Into a very, very successful exit. So success loves clarity. So if you want to grow, simplify. If you want to scale, focus. And if you want freedom, especially those owners that are always talking about, I'd like some freedom, I'd like to be able to do more things, then systemize. You can't do it all and you can't have it all put onto just one or two people. You need systems in your business. Okay? So, this week's assignment, this is like your call to action, is to define your North Star, define your goal for 2026. Select the priority that you're going to work on to close off this year, this quarter. And if you haven't built out a scorecard, I challenge you to do so and assign ownerships to those KPIs. Make it simple, clear, and executable. Okay? That's our topic today. Vision is something that I know Willie's super passionate about. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Willie, to talk about a little bit about vision and how it's helped you in your entrepreneurship experience and you as in business overall.
Oh yeah, man, I don't even know quite where to start with this, but vision is who me being a visionary, you said it before. Yeah, I was so scattered with hundreds of different ideas and uh, and that's really why it was so chaotic in our business. I hadn't found a strategy how to get our vision aligned with all the different ideas that I had and figure out what was actually going to work the best for us. And yeah, you touched on it earlier about the EOS system, and that really helped us align our vision and get back on track. And with that vision, I remember it so clearly once we did the exercise, worked through the vision building days. Yeah, there was a couple days that we just focus on building the vision for the business. And then we came up with or determined that, man, we were focused on hauling full loads, for an example. And we said, man, that's not really our vision for our business. We're not going to go after trying to find full loads for our trucks to pull. It's the LTL business, the niche uh, critical freight that people want to have on time delivery and damage free. And that became our focus. And it was, yeah, it changed everything. It changed our day-to-day focus, our team was aligned on that vision. It made us more profitable and it helped us be aligned as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just changed everything.
It sure did, right? And you know what? And I want to take this as a learning opportunity for the group because, as you explained, the Willys team shifted from trying to do both LTL and the what would be just the one haul or one haul type work, right?
Yeah,
And it changed because we did the analysis. When we looked at this, we said, are we more profitable doing the less than truckload freight, or are we more profitable by doing the full load freight? And we saw it. Well, we get, I don't know what it was, $2,000 a load, right? If it was a full load. But
yeah,
then we charge per hundredth weight on every shipment that we could put into a dry van or a deck. And that could be like $5,000, $6,000 in a dry van when you actually break it down to the amount of shipments going into the van. So that was a key aha moment. That was an indicator. The second one was, well, we could do the full loads, but then we need more drivers and we need more equipment. And we're like,
yeah,
well, that comes at a cost. So we're making less. It's going to cost us more, but we were just doing it to say yes, and it wasn't truly driving the right results for the business, which meant profitability. It was eroding the margins. And so, you challenged us with, let's just build that. Like, and then you tailored your marketing strategy to LTL, and we built the operations to handle the LTL. Was more challenging though, right? Because it required more touch points. The opportunities to damage and lose freight increased, and so it came with more complexities. It was going to be more profitable but more challenging.
yes,
You remember
yeah.
that?
Oh yes, I agree. And that's sometimes if you get clear on if you really want to focus on that kind of niche, it's a lot of times if it there are more different challenges tied to it, it's not as crowded that space. That's how I looked at it back then, where truckload companies are everywhere, but the LTL freight companies there's a good handful of good ones out there. And so for us, it became our focus. We want to play in that field.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it was, we didn't want to play there. We wanted to disrupt it.
Yeah. And I kept thinking throughout the call, it's now almost 4 years ago since I sold the business. Where do you think we would be today if we had stayed focused?
Oh man, I think we would have been kicking some serious butt. I think we would have been well positioned in Calgary now, and we would have been owning the North. I don't think the other organizations really had the capability to stay as niched as the way that Willie's Trucking was being built. When the business sold, the EBITDA percentage was in the high 20s.
Yes.
And it was amazing the turnaround that it had. I could see it doing with the framework into the 30s, no problem, and being super healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be curious, but I'm super excited that you had the leadership to say, "Hey guys, like I think this is what we need to focus on, right?" And giving us that framework to go execute it. So, but back to you, Willie, on this one because as a visionary and as an owner, how did you handle not chasing the shiny objects, not trying to say yes to everything and everyone? How did you cope with that? How did you rein yourself in?
Yeah, I think through the education that I started going after, um, reading books, leadership books, and the traction book, for an example, it's the founder of EOS wrote a book called Traction, and that was an eye opener for me. I think that's probably the book I would point to that, man, I need to stop running after all the shiny stuff. That was since then it has always stuck in the back of my head. Stop running after all the shiny stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is key. I see it in a lot of the stuff that you do, and that we're doing here is we're focused on what we're trying to build, and so that is something that's really neat. All right.
And just to share, we with our business here right now with the optimized business system, we a week ago we felt like, man, we're a little off track or not quite aligned with our vision where we're actually going, and so we just held vision building day here a couple days ago just to get aligned here. And we're super excited what we got planned now and what we're going to build out for the new year.
Yeah, I'm super keen to get this going, and we won't share too much yet, but we can tell this community that there's some cool stuff coming, some very specific niched program coming that will allow serious entrepreneurs and serious leaders to get alignment, to get the opportunity to scale their business with what we're going to be building. So, yeah, I'm super keen for that one to get going here shortly. One last thing that I wanted to ask you, Willie, before we open it up to the group, was you talked about the development, the self development, and awareness about saying no and staying niched within your vision. But that also came with a short period of time where you had to deal with the financial crisis because it wasn't a quick turnaround, right? It wasn't as fast as it needed to be. So, you might have somebody in the audience here today who might be in the same boat. You might be saying like, "Hey, that's great. You want me to be niched, you want me to be focused, but I need more revenue. I need to be able to still survive." What did you do during that time that helped you stay in the lane and focused?
Yeah, I think at the same time when we were figuring out our vision and and it came also with building out our scorecard and really starting to track and see where do we have all these inefficiencies.
Mhm.
And really, you've talked about on these calls before about the waste.
Right.
And I think, yeah, sometimes we're so focused on growing the top end revenue, but I think sometimes we need to pause and look at all the waste that is happening right now. And that I think was a key for us to turn around.
Absolutely. That's it. Like it's staying focused on continuous improvement, right? It's great to have the vision. It's great to be niched and to have strategic alignment, but you also have to row on the same direction with the alignment and knowing that continuous improvement and focus on waste removal is critical for real success down the road. So thanks, Willie. Those are great examples of how Willie's trucking was a success story, and I'm excited to open it up to the group here.